Hey guys, how you doing? Next video we're going to talk about is making and reading your manometer survey. A manometer can be, manometer readings can be given by like water levels, laser levels, electronic levels. They can be using zip levels, which is super popular with most of the more advanced foundation repair contractors and or civil engineers in the field. There's a lot of different ways to get it, but it's overall called a manometer survey. And what happens is they'll give you a series of points. Now I'm going to use zip level points, okay, because it's easier. But same thing if you use a laser or a water level or something like that, where it shoots a laser and they set up a stand and they record exactly where it is on the yardstick or stand ruler or whatever, and they measure that point, and that's what they write down, right? So everything is relative. That's the most important thing, is that everything is relative. So you set a base point for zip levels, 0.0, and this little box is a nice, easy way to understand that's what a base point is. Now, for me, I like to put the base point on the left side of the front door. And I do that consistently because A, everything is relative. It's going to tell me whether everything's high or low or whatever, no matter what I do with the survey, right? So I like doing that so that it's consistent. You ever go to a house that I have measured, you will know that you are putting your base point, because I put my base point, on the left side of the front door. It's just an easy rule. So you set your base point. Now you're going to get a series of numbers that are all relative to this point. It could be plus 0.2, minus 0.6. Let's do minus 0.9, and this could be minus 0.3. So anytime I say plus, means that it's higher than my base point. And all of these measurements are taken in inches. So plus 0.2 inches higher than my base point says that this corner of the home is about a 1/4 inch higher than my base point at the front door. Also, minus 0.6 is lower, right? So minus 0.6 is about a 1/2 inch lower right here than the front door, which is where was my base point. What I also know is my 1/4 inch higher plus 1/2 inch lower, my 0.6 minus is about 3/4 of an inch, or minus 0.8 inches lower from right here to this corner of the home. So you see, everything becomes relative. Now, this is where having a good contractor who has your best interests at heart versus somebody making a sale versus you as a homeowner trying to be money conscious about what you spend and so on and so forth, starts to make some decisions. If your back half of the house has some cracking, let's call it here and this door sticks, I can run my measurements. We'll just call it minus 2.3, minus 2.1, minus 1.8, and minus 1.8, I guess. I can take those measurements right there and isolate it to here, okay? Which means my repair would handle 1, 2, and 3, because that's where it's bad, right? Now, if I take measurements of the entire rest of the house, I could show other areas that may have problems, okay? So that could extend the scope down to here, which is more expensive. Or this corner could also be down, and suddenly I have to wrap this corner with my repair. That's more expensive. So sometimes when you walk in the front door, some people just say, I want that measured, okay? But quality service and providing the best possible repair solution to someone is to measure 4 corners of every room and the middle. Bathrooms, you can just take 1 or 2 because they're generally very small. Those should all be measurements that I take. In the hallway. Those should all be measurements that I take. And based off these measurements, you can do contour map and all the other fun stuff that's optional. Now, a lot of people just look at the house, but the garage could have problems. Now, if it's a floating slab, we get tricky. You have to take measurements on the stem wall of a floating slab, because the slab doesn't represent the actual house foundation when it's floating, right? However, you will still take, generally, measurements of the garage slab. All those are measurements. Now, reading manometer survey. I just showed you how to read it as far as what the points mean. This is 2.3 inches lower than the front door, right? It's 2.5 inches, 2.5 inches lower than this corner being my high point, right? So what does that mean? 2.5 inches lower. Is that good? Is it bad? Whatever. So most people, when they start talking to foundation repair contractors, they don't catch it for the first couple inches. Why? Crack shows up in the house, you fix a crack. Another one shows up, or the same one shows up, you fix it again. Third or fourth time, you might start asking questions, right? If doors and windows are sticking, they might be replaced or reframed or whatever. So most of the time, people don't get to us till it's 2 or 3 inches down. Bigger type projects are 5 to 6 inches down. Big projects is like 10 to 12 inches down. Though most settlement that I've seen at one point in time was 48 inches down. That was in the city of Taft, and it was absolutely ridiculous. Like from the street, you could, anyway. So when do I have to get something handled? The American Concrete Institute created a standard called the ACI 117. And what this standard says, what it actually says, is a 1/2 inch allowable tolerance over the span of 10 feet. Now, everybody kind of ran with that and just says 1 inch over 20 feet, which isn't actually the way the math works out when you go through the standard, but it doesn't matter. Pretty much universally, everybody says 1 inch over 20 feet. What does that mean? That means from my front door to the back kitchen, let's say I'm down minus 1.1 inches. But this span is 38 feet. Well, over the span of 40 feet, I can have 2 whole inches of settlement. And it could just be construction design, right? So just because this is down 1.1 inches doesn't necessarily mean that it has settled. That's where things get tricky. That's where you have to start reading the symptoms of failure and understand what the causes are. You guys have to understand, for us to evaluate something like this, we're just looking at the home as a snapshot in time. We have absolutely no idea what the original construction elevations look like. Residential has the loosest standards for construction, okay? Versus like hospitals and things like that. So 1 inch over 20 feet, I don't know if 2.5 inches down is settlement. I have to look at the cracks and say that's not normal. Okay, maybe if everything else in the house is at minus 0.6 and this just drops 1.8, that's severe, that's settlement, that's something to handle, right? So unless you take a manometer and come back 6 to 8 weeks later and take another one where you can kind of compare the two, all we have is a snapshot in time. We have no idea what the original condition looked like, so all you can do is evaluate it based off of the symptoms of the failures and kind of go from there. That's it for reading manometer surveys. Not going to get into contour mapping and all that fun stuff till we get to like engineering stuff. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, drop it below or message me directly. Please like, subscribe, and share as you guys see fit. Thank you.